Guardian program. Last year when we stood up the School Safety and Security Committee after Uvalde, that was one of the issues that we were told by the school board and the superintendent that was on the agenda and that we were going to try to get passed. Now we are almost a year later and we haven't had much traction. Now we did the survey with the ISD employees, but we haven't surveyed the community, which is what I was told we're waiting for. And this was back in January that I was told that we would be surveying the community to get their input on the Guardian program. Here we are May and we still haven't had any surveys. I know we have a lot going on. When we all have busy lives, stuff happens. But this is one of those issues that if you don't stay on top of it and you don't stay diligent, we become complacent. And then we saw what happens when you become complacent. Lives can be taken. So it's a serious issue, and I know a lot of people have done a lot of great work. Robbie has worked very hard as part of that committee and to implement a lot of improvements around our school district, and I applaud him for that. He's done an amazing job. His EOP was fantastic, and I'm really pleased with the job that he's doing. And I know Donna serves on that committee as well. Madam President, I invite you to attend. That is one of the requirements of the board president is to attend that committee as well. So I invite you to attend that as well. If you can make it, I appreciate that. So I'm just here in favor of the Guardian program. I'd hope you guys would give it serious consideration, and I'd like to see us get community feedback on kind of what the community thinks about it and see if that's something we can get the ball rolling on. So, because it's been a year, haven't had much traction on it, so I kind of like to see where we're at with that and kind of get the community's input and kind of see where they're at on it. So, like I said, the majority of the employees are for it. We had over 30% of our staff that were willing to become guardians, which is a pretty big number. So, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank y'all
for coming tonight. Speaking out. Okay, next on the agenda is recognitions.
Well, good evening, President Rayfield and Superintendent Epley and members of the board. I have the pleasure of standing in for Mr. Scarborough, who is at the baseball game. Lots of positive vibes headed his way tonight for a hopeful win, so our baseball team may advance. But we have 3 groups tonight that are small because a lot of the students are at other events. This is a very difficult time of the year. But I would like to invite Mrs. Molly Ryan to share in some of the celebrations and recognitions from the art department. Don't know if you've walked the high school hallways lately, but the entire hallway outside of her classroom is just adorned with this beautiful artwork, and the students are very proud of it. So Molly, I'd like to recognize your students.
Good evening. I'm Molly Ryan, the high school art teacher. So VACE, Visual Art Scholastic Event, is our biggest contest that we do each year. This was our first year since the pandemic that it was an in-person event. So I had 8 students compete. They had to actually go to the event and interview one-on-one with, it's usually a working artist or another art teacher, and they have to explain and defend their work. So there's usually lots of nerves. And it's a great experience for them. But I had 6 students advance to area. They got a top score of 4. And then one of them is here tonight, Peyton Jones. She made an amazing ceramic sculpture, very expressive. It's on display in the showcase right now. And I had one student, a senior, Hannah Johnson. She competed in 2 pieces, both advanced to area, and one of the paintings advanced to state. So she competed at state a couple weeks ago, and she received a perfect score and medaled at state. So just to kind of give you an idea of the scope of the contest, across the state, 31,000 artworks were entered, only 2,000 went to state. So it's a really big deal. And this is actually her 3rd time medaling at state. She's very talented. She couldn't be here tonight though. So just the names, I'll read them off. Elias Canales, Basil Contreras, Hannah Johnson, Peyton Jones, Hope Myers, and Alexis Moltz were our students. And another little tidbit is at the end of the year, I like to survey my students just to see how they felt about their experience in my class. And of my seniors in my advanced class, these are Art 3, Art 4 AP kids, 53% are continuing in the visual arts in higher education or trade school or as a career path. So I just want to let y'all know that we're doing amazing things in my class. So thank you.
Not only are our students doing amazing things, but Mrs. Ryan has been accepted to the Cleveland Institute of Art this summer to do an enrichment program and then bring that back to our classroom. So I'm really proud of her as well. And Mrs. Ryan, how many people were accepted into? Only 15 across the nation accepted. So thank you. And it's no surprise that our FFA department has many students that competed at state. I'm so proud of these teachers and their work, and they are tirelessly working all the time. So Mr. Warndell and Ms. Weller are our two exceptional FFA teachers, and Mr. Warndell has a list of wonderful awards to recognize tonight. Again, a small group because many of them are at the baseball game, but I'm glad that the ones that are here are here.
Good evening. Ironically, we probably have the biggest group that we could have had come here for the last few years, but it just seems like there's several that are at the baseball game and a big 4-H event going on tonight, as well as family stuff, so just a small group here. But I guess our first team was Plan ID. They were first in district, 4th in area, and 26th at state. And the members included Hudson Jenner, Kendall-Lynn Pruitt, Rendell-Lynn Wagster, and Abigail Pollock. And then from the farm business team, we have Rylan here. The farm business team was first in district, first in area, and 11th at state. The Laurel team was Justin Browning, Faith Castillo, Abigail Pollock, Rendell-Lynn Wagster, and Kendall Pruitt. They were 2nd in district, 4th in area, and 11th at state. And then this year we had a cotton team. It was our first year to have a cotton team. They were 2nd in district and 6th in area. Those team members, they're not here, but were Auburn Frost, Olivia Rodriguez, and Grace Vogel. And then the dairy cattle team was 2nd in district, 7th in area, and 24th at state. Their team members were Jacob Cassidy, Auburn Frost, Olivia Rodriguez, and Grace Vogel. They were unable to attend though tonight. And then agronomy, this is only our 2nd year with the agronomy team. And Rylan and Faith are both here from that team. And they were 2nd in district, 10th in area, and 29th at state. We also have 7 students who will be receiving their Lone Star degree, which is the state degree from FFA. They have to go through a record book check and have it all checked by the state and to qualify for the degree. This year, the recipients are Justine Covarrubias, Ava Clark, Olivia Rodriguez, Peyton Trapp, Abigail Pollock, Rendell-Lynn Wagster, and Hayden Warndell. And then just this Saturday, Abigail Pollock was elected to be our area officer, which is really good. This is my 23rd year teaching, and this is only the 2nd time in 23 years that we've had an area officer. So, very good. And that's everything.
Thank you. Amazing. Such pride too, so glad to see we have some representation here tonight. And we have one more group that we'd like to recognize. Mr. Myers has not only taught exceptionally in the math classroom, but he's also headed our UIL competition at the high school. So Mr. Myers also has an incredible list of award recipients for our UIL academics team. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. All right. Not all of us are here. 3 of them are here. And these are just the regionals results. I don't have the district results in front of me. I was told to bring the regional results. So number sense, which all three of these gentlemen here were on the number sense team. Austin Herod, Antonio Hopner, Jet Ye, and Titus Long. They were obviously they won first place at district, were able to qualify to go to region. Amongst 9 teams and 45 individuals, we finished third as a team. It was very, very close. We were all kind of, we were all like, no, we were so close. We were only 45 points away from first. So it was a very, very close competition. Austin finished 5th place individually, and Antonio finished 6th place. Jet got 10th, and Titus got 21st. So everybody was at least above the average. So that was awesome. And we also had a student who finished 2nd at district for a calculator application, so he qualified to go on. And out of 42 individuals, he finished in 17th. That was Josie Casillo. And then in science, we were actually a 2nd place team in district, but we won a wild card position. So it was very surprising. We got to go and compete. And with the shortened amount of time, I still think we did pretty well with 9 teams competing and 48 individuals. We finished 5th as a team. Austin finished in the top 10, got 9th place. Daniel Glenn, who's a sophomore, he's not here, he got 15th place. Antonio got 20th place. And then we also had one young man that made it to region on his own in literary criticism. And out of 45 individuals, he finished in 10th. So it was, I think, a pretty good showing. We have a lot to be glad and happy for. We're looking forward to next year. Unfortunately, Austin and Titus aren't coming back. They're seniors. They're graduating. But this young man here on the left, Antonio, you got to watch him. You'll be hearing his name a lot next year. All right. We have a whole bunch of underclassmen coming back next year, so we're really excited. Thank you.
Baseball team did win.
Yes! I told them they had to win so that we could watch them. So
Yes.
on to the next round. Good job.
Okay, do we have, I know we're not doing baseball, so
We do not have any athletics, so we can move to the construction update.
okay. We'll move to the construction update with Derek Bird.
Okay. Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent. Wonderful to see you, members of the board. So we've had a very busy up and down last month as we've gone through construction. Design, permitting, and additional acquisition of land, let's call it that. So just in the last month, when we presented on the 19th, we just received all of our bids from subcontractors to Bartlett Cock. On the 26th, Claycomb released a post-bid addendum that included the modifications around the 123 Timmerman intersection, which includes removing the house and purchasing the land that Bartoskowitz has there. So the new design does include all of that information and those calculations taken in. That's also going to be included in the GMP that we look at later today. So all that was updated and handled within that post-bid addendum. On the 2nd, we had a kind of a realization that, hey, we have these permits into the city of Seguin for connection to infrastructure that the city of Seguin does not yet own or maintain or have the right to authorize our ability to connect to. So that kind of triggered some pauses, I guess. And so we scheduled a meeting with them and just kind of talked through. The gist of the outcome is they will conditionally approve our permit and the public infrastructure permit based upon the understanding that they are going to take over that service. So they're telling us it's not a holdup, it's not going to slow us down. They're continuing to say, when you want water, we're going to be ready for you. And so that's the story, and they're sticking to it. But I'm still kind of at a, how do you approve something if you don't own it mentality. I did have a conversation this last Friday with Springs Hill. Good news from them is they are willing to give us a hydrant for construction water. So part of the GMP that we have tonight includes the worst case scenario, which is going to be trucking water from a Seguin hydrant somewhere on the other side of Cordova and filling fracking tanks all day long. So that was a cost that was included, and we shouldn't have to realize, because we should be able to utilize a hydrant around the school district here and pipe to an elevated tank at the construction site. So that was a good news from them. They are looking into giving us the letter of authorization that we need for the city to release the permit of that public infrastructure as well. Like I said, I talked to them Friday. I'm waiting to hear back from them. Hopefully to hear from Daniel this week, coming quickly. So that was on the 2nd. On the 4th, we had a good meeting with GVEC discussing relocating the power poles that are going to be in the way of the new driveway, as well as the design of how we're getting service to the school. And then we also had a conversation with Walsh Gallegos on adopting a wage rate. We've had some conversations about wage rate. Right now, the plans in the GMP include a Davis-Bacon wage rate. There's some classifications of contractors that aren't covered under Davis-Bacon. The big ones are stonemasons, electrical helpers, and glazers. So if we can establish our own wage rate for those items, they don't have to be paid at a higher rate per hour. And so on a project this size and scale, the number of hours you're talking, it could be a substantial savings. The big problem and challenge we have is you have to conduct a survey on construction being conducted within the district. I'm only aware of one apartment complex that's broken ground, and that's the Baxter complex up on 123. So I have stopped by them, requested those numbers from them. If any of y'all know of any other construction projects within the district that are commercial, please let me know and I'll be happy to drop by. I may be forced to go to residential. I'm not sure how that'll work, but that is one of the things we're trying to do, and that'll be something that we'll work with Bartlett Cock and their subcontractors on, reducing those costs once we get that established. That will be something we'll have to bring back to the board for adoption, just so that's on your radars. And then last Thursday, we had our initial presentation on the GMP, and we also went through line item cost reductions, which I know y'all have seen. I'm not going through all of those tonight. If there's specific questions, we can address them, but you're aware of them, and we're working to basically double check the validity of all of them, and just make sure that it's the right choice for the district in the long run. We're not just cutting up front where it's going to cost us down the line. So those are the things we're weighing as we go through that. So moving forward, our tentative approval of the public infrastructure based upon the 20-day review time and the resubmission is 5/26. So that's kind of the next big thing we're seeing on the timeline. Challenges, I spoke to the land purchase. Mr. Bartoskowitz has agreed to sell us the half acre that sits there at Timmerman and 123 and move that house to a different location. We're working with Walsh Gallegos to figure out what exactly the district can financially do that's not considered a gift of public funds. And so in order to move the house, it moves it out of our way. That's a benefit to the district. The other things that he's wanting, we're trying to figure that out through the cost of the purchase of the land, which we would do through the appraised value fair purchase, or basically the fair value of the land, purchase that. And then he's offered if there's some additional land in that area that we would need to purchase to help offset the cost, just so he's not out of money for sacrificing that house location and moving it away. So we're trying to find an equitable solution to where he's not out of money. If it does cost more than what the half acre sits on, the district's able to acquire additional land that we could use in the future that would be adjacent to the property we already have in that area. So that's kind of where we sit there. I've already spoken to the city permitting water improvements, Spring Hills. That's kind of up in the air still. I've got it here as a challenge, just so you're aware. And then we discussed last month the Lincoln Huber Road challenges. So project timeline, this is an ongoing sheet that we've shown you and just kind of checked off as we're going. So obviously we're at the presentation of the GMP tonight. We do expect, based upon the next slide, the public infrastructure on the 26th. And then at that point, we will submit the final plat and the site plan and the building permit for review. We are still hoping and shooting and honestly praying for a June 1st, getting Bartlett Cock over here and breaking ground. There are some, we've got the city permit, we've got TxDOT permit, so there are still a couple of things in the air as far as that happening, but that is still what we're pressing forward to. So public infrastructure permit, which is where we're at currently with the city. We got the first round of comments back from the city on March 29th. The resubmission was performed on April 28th. So if you remember, I told you we got this permit submitted like 2 weeks in advance. Our time frame was a 4-week review, 2-week resubmit, 4-week review. Well, the comments that came back, they required a little more review and restructuring of the submission. Cody even had to have a couple of meetings with him just to make sure he had everything squared away. So we ended up taking 4 weeks for the review. So we're right back to the original, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, same time frame. Still looking at that May 26th, based upon 20 days to review on the 4/28 submission. Okay, do you want me to go ahead and get into this or hold on to pricing for the actual GMP discussion or action item? Wait. Okay. Then I'm going to wait for that piece for the action item. So if there's any questions on schedule or what has happened or any of those things, I'm here for you. Okay. We'll see y'all shortly.
We're going to go ahead and move into discussion items, which we will start with the first one being staggered start times.
We had some questions at the last board meeting related to transportation, which ties into some of the considerations with staggered start times. So Mr. Morales is going to give us an update on that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about our findings in regards to staggered start times.
Okay, you guys should have 2 sets of papers there. I'll start with the first one. It says current bus inventory. I think that was part of our questions, is what do we have, what do we not have? I'll just go down that list. We currently have 4 special education buses that all are roadworthy. We have a total of 24 regular education buses. 7 of those buses are not roadworthy. All right. 007 and 008 are currently not running at all. One of them is parked at our baseball field. One of them is parked at Seguin Diesel. We need to sell those. We need direction from the board as to how we want to get rid of those buses. I know I've talked to, haven't talked to Carl directly, the owner of Seguin Diesel, but I have talked to Weird. Weird is one of their mechanics. I know Carl wants to buy one of them. Weird wants to buy the other one. That's actually his name, is Weird. Okay, that's his last name. So y'all looking at me funny on that one. 006 and 0009 are not roadworthy. They have electrical issues, holes on the floors. There's trouble with wiring. We just need to get rid of those as well. 0012, 13, and 14 do not have air conditioning. We use those. Those 3 are actually roadworthy for short trips. We use those for outdoor ed. If we need to run a short route throughout the district, if we don't have enough buses, if athletics or band have taken all the other buses, we can use those buses to go on a short. I'm not going to send that bus out to Hallettsville or Pearsall or wherever we need to go. They're not conditioned for that. Bus 5, 6, and 11 do not have air conditioning. And between about now and next November, we'll need air conditioning. So, and as many kids as we're packing onto those buses, we definitely need that. Van Suburbans, we currently have two 12-passenger vans, and we can no longer buy those. Those are grandfathered in. You know, it's against the rules to buy those now. We have two 7-passenger vans. Those are your minivans, and we have one Suburban. We currently have two small AV buses, those little small white buses. One of them is not roadworthy. The diesel one is not roadworthy. Mr. Todd actually uses that one going back and forth, transporting kids from here, from the intermediate to the band hall and back. That's about all we can use them for. The batteries will die on the road, that kind of stuff. It just goes out. So we really have one. We need to get rid of that other one. Two new buses are scheduled to arrive in December of '23, and we have a packet ready. Mr. Weaver's got a packet ready to order some more. He's ready to go with that as soon as we get an opportunity to do that at the next board meeting. Right now, if you go down those routes, Route 5 and 6 are currently not open due to a lack of drivers. You know, then each route after that tells you the morning route, how long it'll take, and how long the PM takes. And the program that Mr. Weaver uses, that Mr. Weaver and Ms. Christine McNeil do an outstanding job of tracking and reviewing routes and see how we can adjust routes, move kids around, that kind of stuff. So sometimes you'll hear some of that because we need to move kids to make our routes a little more efficient, to try to go in and out as fast as we possibly can. But if you look at that, so for example, Route 7 in the morning takes an hour and 5 minutes. But in the PM route, due to the number of kids, we have an hour and 39 minutes. And their program will tell you exactly what time the bus stopped at this location, how long it takes, when they make the next stop, when it started, when it stopped. So the times on these routes are pretty accurate. They're going to be within a couple of minutes. It's not too far off. And then I put down the comments of more or less where these routes pick up. So for example, Route 7 is going to the Summit, Huber, Link Road, 758. That's not all inclusive, but it's more, gives you an idea of where it's going. Okay, and that kind of stuff. So Route 8 in the morning takes you an hour and 40 minutes, PM an hour and 33 minutes, and that's going to be 123 north, the east side or the west side of 123. So we're going out all the way out to Bermansdorf, those kind of areas, Center Point Road, those kind of things. So you go through those routes, and I won't read all those, so you can kind of do that. Route 16 is elementary kids only. Route 20 is intermediate only. 21 is junior high and high school combined. Right now, currently on bus 15, Mr. Weaver, bus 21 is the other one also that we ship kids off?
Yes.
Okay, bus 15 and 21, we average between 5 and 10 daily that we have to pull off that route and move to a different route to help, just because of the number of kids in there. And those routes will service Mill Creek, the majority of that. Mill Creek, Plantation, Las Brisas, the Summit, those areas. So we have quite a bit of kids that we have to pull out daily. Bus 11 and bus 10 help out with those particular areas. So that's all those routes. So if we were to go to a staggered start, okay, the first thing we will need to do is fill our 5 routes that are vacant right now. 2 of those routes are being driven right now by Mr. Weaver and Ms. Christine. Those are our sub drivers. And Earl Riddick, if you don't know Mr. Earl, he comes in there. He's also one of our subs. He'll help us out quite a bit when we need drivers. So he's almost a full-time guy. He's here so much. Okay. So we will need to fill those, and we will need to add 4 more drivers to be able to pick up the longest routes. There's no way those routes can run a double route. And we cannot send a double route out of this area to accommodate that. So we will need 4 routes to go out that direction. The majority of that's going to be north. North, you're going all the way out to 3353. If you go out that direction, keep going out. Dry Bolt Road, etc., all that, almost out to Fentress, where our district line is, Martindale, those kind of areas. So we would need a total of 9 new drivers. Now, with that said, we would have enough buses to begin that process. If we do that, though, and we fill all those routes, we would not have enough buses for all our extracurriculars. So extracurriculars would either have to report real early to their events, depending on where they're going. So they may need to be there at 2 or 1 o'clock, depending on how far it is, to make sure we have those buses back to run those routes, or they'd be real late. And that's always the case for Mr. Todd and the band. They're always having to wait on somebody. So getting those kind of buses at some point in time, we may need to explore getting white buses that are designated for extracurriculars only. Okay. So we would have to do that. The optimum time between the starts of the two different start times would be an hour and a half. I think if we have all 9 drivers and all those buses we need, and we tweak some things, I think we can get down to an hour, but not less than an hour. We will need at least that between the 2 start times, and I know that's not optimum. So that's what we would need to do as far as that. Traffic-wise, I don't know exactly what it would do. In my mind, seeing the traffic out there in the mornings, we would just have traffic longer. We'd start at 7 and end at 9 instead of 7 and end at 8. You know, I think it would just kind of extend that. We have so many kids down there. So some of our possible recruitment strategies right now, some of the things we've talked about is increase the starting pay, and that goes along with increasing pay for experienced drivers, because we can't forget that back end. Now, I don't know that these things are going to be a guarantee. This is just some of the ideas we had. We discussed talking about a sign-on bonus or a retention bonus for those guys that are here. Start training our own drivers. You know, we have guys that are interested in driving but don't have the license. And it's a long process now to get that driver's license, to get that CDL. When I went through, we went to a class and took the test. Now they have to do a bunch of different things, so we have to train our own that would do that. And we'll increase the number of hours that are guaranteed for them to work. I know some other districts do that. Those are just some of the ideas, some of the things that can help us kind of alleviate some of that. But that would be, that's just a little recap of what we have or don't have. The second piece right here, Mr. Weaver and bus drivers did an excellent job. We did an actual count, which is something you guys were requesting, an actual count, a physical count. So if you look at that first page, and I'll go through that first one, and then you can kind of just read it on your own at that particular time. We did it for 2 weeks, the week of 4/24 to 4/28, and the week of 5/1 to 5/5. So we actually physically took the count. So that very first one you see, a 7 a.m., that's Route 7. In the morning, on 4/24, they picked up 10 elementary kids, 5 intermediate kids, 10 junior high and high school. On the PM route that same day, they had 33 elementary kids, 22 intermediate kids, 14 junior high and high school combined. Okay, so if you just read it like that, that's 4/24, 4/25, bus 7. So each route, the next one is Route 8, 9, 10, etc. So you go down there, and on the bottom of that, you can see the averages that they had for that particular route. So on Route 7, the averages for the AM for elementary students is an average of 8. In the PM went to an average of 35. Okay, the intermediate kids in the morning, average of 6. In the afternoon, average 23. Junior high school stayed about the same, 10 in the morning, 13 in the afternoon. And some of that's also impacted by athletics, what's going on. If we don't have athletics, right now those numbers are going to be up because everything's over. You know, so all events are over, all the kind of stuff's going on. So kids are now either riding the bus or getting picked up. So each one of those, if you go through each one of those sections, it'll give you what those averages were and what the actual numbers were. And if you keep going on, you'll see week 2, which begins with 5/1. All right, so I won't read all that to you. That's information for you. You guys can read that and kind of give you an idea of what we're dealing with as far as transportation goes. Any questions?
So what formula would you advise us to use, though, to look at projections as well, as far as our future projections with the growth that we're anticipating?
Well, the future, you're probably looking at 10% based on the demographic study. Now, is that, how accurate is that demographic study going to be? Are we going to grow 10%, are we going to grow 7%, or are we going to grow 20%? We just don't know on that, but I think a conservative number would be about 10%. What we're seeing right now, I know Ms. Davenport just talked to a lady a day or two ago. She's bringing about 5 kids. She goes, "Hey, we're moving to your district, and I'm bringing 5 kids, and they're in these grades." So those are the kinds of things we're seeing. The other part is I deal with residency, so I still see them coming. They're still coming right now, enrolling right now. So, with 2 weeks left in school, so they're still enrolling.
And Mr. Jeter, as we see that enrollment happening and we see if they're selecting that they would ride the bus, the transportation team will start to balance out the routes. And that balancing continues through the first couple of weeks of school. And I think that's the hardest thing for our families, is seeing that at the beginning of the year, it looks like chaos. It's, hey, the buses, are not full or are full, or overcrowded. It's, hey, pick up and drop off is insane. And that happens in those first few weeks as parents drop off on those first few days and then say, okay, we made sure you got there, now you're gonna ride the bus, and that adjusts. So we will be doing a big push in communication so that parents are aware that is a natural process. It is the most unfun part of the school year starting because parents really want it to be a positive experience, and it's long wait times. The buses are continually adjusting in those first few weeks. But that's a real big part of what we're doing, is we analyze every day as those bus routes are going, as the pickup and drop off is happening. So I think when we look at how this impacts the concept of a staggered start time, this is really where we started to evaluate, can we get 9 drivers? We've gone all year in a driver deficit, so to confidently say we will get 9 drivers is something I cannot say. I think that we have spent time over the last week really shoring up this trainee program. Mr. Weaver has shared that he has 5 interested candidates in the trainee program. We have a certified trainer, and so we can start that process. But it is a process, and sometimes people don't finish that process. But our hope is that having that Grow Your Own program will help get us closer, and certainly at least meet the routes we have this year. But I have concerns about 9 drivers. So after discussing this, I think our concern truly is that we will not see the outcome that I think people thought might happen with the staggered start time, that we will still see traffic as a concern. On top of that, concerns from families about young children not starting early in the morning, and who's staying home with them, or do I drop them off for childcare? And then of course it not solving the transportation issue. Certainly children riding in the center aisle is not appropriate, and we will be adjusting routes to prevent that from happening. But I'm just not sure that at this time we have the ability to make that staggered start time a viable solution to either transportation or traffic issues. So it's my recommendation and the team's recommendation at this time that we focus on recruitment, getting more drivers and working the angle of that, as well as communicating how we can better move the traffic along. I think our traffic personnel has helped with that. But we are going to have to really communicate with our families, and I've even talked to principals about some fun incentives to get kids moving quickly. I've worked with principals in the past who will dress up if kids beat their weekly time for drop off and pick up. So there's some fun incentives to get everybody kind of moving along. But I think we need to study the problem, and I think we need to work a little bit on that recruitment piece and really building the capacity as we grow with our transportation.
I wanted to add, I did some investigative work as I picked up my child from the high school, and the last 2 weeks I made some general observations about high school intermediate, and elementary. And I can say, I have statistics if you want me to read it all, but usually by 3:40, the line of Link Road is all clear. In the intermediate, just for today example, there was only 3 cars in line and 1 waiting to pull out at 3:36. And today at the intermediate, at the elementary, there was 1 car in line and 2 waiting to pull out. High school, I didn't count that, but the sheriffs have helped a lot. In the morning, there are 3 sheriffs that are at the intermediate, elementary, and the overflow lot. Helps a lot to get people in and out. After school, there's only 2 sheriffs, and 1 is at the elementary and intermediate. The high school does have a little bit of chaos, and the overflow has a little bit of chaos getting out with that missing sheriff's officer. But nothing that's too late. On Friday, it was an odd day, and people did not pull out. I did not pull out of that parking lot in Baxter until 3:45, and that's unusual. And so the traffic flow that I've observed is not that bad. If you're only going 3:37, 3:39, and 3:40, it's all clear. That's 10 minutes after high school gets out. I apologize, I did not do any surveying on the junior high, but I do know they have an officer there that helps pull the buses out and does help with the traffic flow there. So with this inventory and what I saw, and these are just county cars, I don't know if the staggering is going to help at all, like Stephanie said. So I just would like to see how next year goes without the staggered start times.
So one of the things that we talked about is it's not really in the board's purview to vote on stagger times. We definitely appreciate the information and keeping us abreast of your recommendations and the actions that you're going to take on it. But that's the reason why there is no action item tonight. That really is a district call. And I think you're making the call that all of us were sort of headed towards had it been a board item that we would have typically voted on, but it's not something that is really appropriate for the board to vote on. So thank you for the information.
Thank you, and we will continue to update the board, even though it isn't a action item. I think as we go into the school year, certainly as we balance routes and we work on the start of school with pickup and drop off, reporting to you guys in late September, October of kind of the progress with that and what we're seeing. We'll also have to be very mindful of our extracurricular travels. It is a transportation issue that is not solely something this district deals with in regards to having the capacity to get the kids to their events at other campuses in a timely fashion and still run your afternoon routes. And that has meant, as Mr. Morales mentioned, campuses having to negotiate with another campus to say, if we arrive early, can you house us in your gym? Can you house us in your cafeteria so that our band is not late to perform, the first song of the game, so everyone is able to arrive on time. And so that is a constant negotiation. The good news with our football schedule next year is we only have 4 away games in the regular season, so that gives us some level of relief, but truly we're going to have to build the capacity in drivers, and then and that includes asking some of our staff that are not coaches to consider getting the CDL so that they have a little bit more flexibility. But if they're unable to do that, as Mr. Morales said, looking at potential of the White Fleet buses, they only serve 15 kids, so it doesn't take big teams or band in its entirety. But I think we definitely, as part of our long-range growth plan, will need to consider a robust transportation plan.
So any other questions, or if not, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next discussion item, which is budget timeline.
So I think you got a timeline. Did y'all get the timeline, or okay? No? Okay.
Okay.
So As normal, what we're looking at is at the end of May, of course, the legislature will finally finish their process, and we will have to then turn around and try to evaluate everything, try to determine what raises are going to be required based on whatever the legislation that is passed, and exactly how it is worded, because there are some questions in terms as we get in there of what some of this means in terms when they talk about all the extra money, 50% has to go to salaries. Does that mean just the extra money they're giving us, or the way some people are reading it and saying it's any extra dollar you get, 50 cents goes to that? So if they earmark $100,000 for security, 50,000 of that goes to salaries. So it's very, very up in the air. Hopefully they're going to clarify that before we get there. But until we get some clarification, it's really hard to do this. I've worked with some preliminary numbers. I've given some preliminary numbers to Mo Casey based on current the preliminary values I got, and they're going to hopefully this week give me a run that says what our revenue projections would be based on the HB 100 as it stands now, not as it passes, but as it stands. And even once the legislature ends, it's going to take a week before anybody figures out exactly what it all means, at least. Probably would be months before we all figure out exactly what it means. We'll all have it figured out, and then somebody will say, no, we interpreted it wrong. It will happen. But we will work on that. So June and July, we will be coming back to you with some preliminary numbers. June, for sure, they will be very preliminary in terms of revenue projections, and then those costs, we'll have the costs a little better down. But it'll be preliminary on salaries so that we can try to get a salary schedule finalized as quickly as possible. That's one of the big goals, is to get that salary schedule finalized for you. Hopefully in June. I would hope that we don't have to call a special meeting or anything. If not in June, then by the July meeting, we should definitely have a salary schedule available. Then we get to August. And in August, I've got to ask for, July 25th, we get the certified values, hopefully. Last year, as you know, we didn't get certified values on July 25th. We got an estimate of certified values that we had to go off of, and didn't get final values until the day of the board meeting. Hopefully this year we will have certified values. It will not be as bad as it was last year. Then we get to August. And because of the calendar and because of the way we have to advertise stuff, we would have to ask that we have the first board meeting on August 14th, which is the second week, which is, so a week early. But that's because we have to have 10 days advance publication of the notice to adopt the tax rate and the budget. So from the 14th, then we get to, I can get it in the newspaper for the 20th, which means we would have to have a board meeting on the 30th, which is a Wednesday. Now it could be the 30th or the 31st, it could be a Wednesday or a Thursday, and it should be a short meeting. That could be that only needs to be the one agenda item on there, and we can schedule that for whatever time. But we really need to know in advance. We need to make sure that everybody's good with that time, and because that has to all be published in that schedule. So, and that is where we stand.
And Paul did an excellent job creating a budget calendar for you, and I'll make sure that we send that to you so you have a copy of what he just shared with you.
And I apologize. I thought I had sent it. My fault.
Yeah, once we have the calendar, we can make sure that the dates all work, and we can go ahead and get those planned as board meetings, special board meetings, whatever you need. Moving on along, I believe we're going to strike the grant funded dyslexia positions.
Yes.
We'll be discussing that tonight. Yes. So then we're going to move on to the next discussion item, which is the board meeting start time.
I did a little research on area board meetings, just to share that with you as you consider whether you would like to move your start time from 7 o'clock. SCU CISD begins theirs at 6, Hayes at 5:30, Northside at 6:30, Judson at 6, San Marcos CISD at 6, Seguin at 6:30, New Braunfels at 6 o'clock. Comel has a pre-meeting at 5:30 for consent agenda items, and then their meeting starts at 6, and Marion starts at 7.
So if you guys recall, we had actually talked about this a few months ago about adjusting the start times. One, to minimize the time frame that administrators or staff would need to be here between school being out and start of the meeting, as well as the end time that people would have to be here and then report to school the next day. So I asked Ms. Epley to do that research, and as you can see, we are, other than Marion, we are one of the latest starting times for board meetings. So I'd just like for us to give it some discussion, because it will come back up tonight as an action item to take action on if we want to change the time or not. So, initial thoughts?
I know that we do all our special meetings earlier. I mean, that's pretty much a normal thing for us. But I think anything before 6 would be difficult for me. I would not want to do anything before 6. I prefer, if we were to move it at all, I want it to be 6:30. Just speaking out loud for myself. I would have no issue with 6:30 on a normal basis.
Yeah, same for me, 6:30 works well. 6 might be cutting it close, but it's doable, but 6:30 is optimal for me.
So I have a question. If we did a pre-meeting with the consent agenda and then at 6, we only need a majority to get to that consent agenda, right? We don't need to. So that's always an option if there's a majority of us that can get here at 6 o'clock to get through the consent agenda and then start at 6:30. I like that idea.
I mean, I do think it's time for us to start looking at some alternative ideas and whatever that may be. And if it's doing consent and then going into regular is an interesting idea.
Yeah, we used to do workshops early, I think at 6 or 6:30, and like budget workshops and things like that, then start the regular meeting at 7.
Yeah.
But for us, might be able to bump that up. We can start at 6 for a workshop if needed, and then 6:30. We have a regular meeting.
How would a like a consent agenda meeting work?
Well, it's still an open meeting,
Well, I understand it would
but we would need 4 of us.
establish a forum the same way, discuss and vote on consent agenda items.
Well, we don't ever really discuss the consent agenda.
You have opportunity to, but.
And that, just to be clear on what Comel has started doing in the last 5 months, is the pre-meeting is not to vote on consent. It is a pre-meeting for any consent agenda items that the board has asked to discuss. So that could be 2, it could be up to 4. And so in that brief moment, those presentations or discussions happen so that when the actual meeting starts, it's understood that the vote will happen and there will not be discussion of consent at that time. If you guys typically don't discuss consent, it might not save you any time.
Typically, we don't.
I usually don't consent.
Yeah, but I think there's also some cleanup that we were talking about doing, adding more things to the consent agenda that didn't need to go through all of the depth of the discussion. If we start doing and maybe having discussion.
Yeah, because I think there's things that probably fall under action right now that would bump to consent, that we might want to discuss more or hear more presentations. I think is really what Comel was doing, is hearing more of a presentation from their staff on why they're recommending, so that when you get to the regular meeting, it just sort of goes a little bit quicker to not have both.
It would definitely be beneficial if we start adding things to the consent agenda, adding more, you know, start having a lot more quantity, or even allowing more time, like getting the agenda, you know, more time before as well. if we start adding a lot of things to the consent agenda, I think, you know, sometimes getting on a Thursday afternoon, especially if you have children in school where there's a lot of events going on or something, it could be a weird weekend, where you only have one day to review it. Well, that doesn't give you a lot of time to ask those questions. You know, and especially asking her to use her weekend to answer kind of
Well, I will tell you that we will be working on a calendar that allows us to get you the information earlier so that we do have the time, if there are questions for us to discuss and make you feel more prepared going into the meeting. And that also allows me to prepare the staff for the questions that you have, so we're more productive in this meeting as well. So that is in the works for sure.
Any other questions? Otherwise, it'll come up as an action item and you'll have the opportunity to ask additional questions if more pop into your head as we go through the rest of the meeting. So with that, we're going to move on to reports, with the first being the campus activity reports. Any questions on any of the reports that were given to us?
I did have a question about the transportation. So that's what he's talking about with training our own, the 5, and waiting for approval for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we actually, this last week, developed a job description as well as the structure and pay for those individuals that would get paid during the training procedure. And then as soon as they were officially certified, they would move to their first year driver status pay. And that would be their increase for actually earning the certification.
And the district pays for their training and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And they would have a time limit to achieve that, so that if they don't meet that requirement, they would be released at that time.
Okay.
I don't have any questions, but I did just want to say congratulations to the special education department for getting that grant. That's great. And then for CTE, all of the certifications that the kids accomplish this year is great. We haven't seen that in a while, so that was really good to read that. So congratulations to those departments.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we will move on into the superintendent's report, starting with the Guadalupe County Education Coalition.
We were invited to join the Guadalupe County Education Coalition. This is a group that would be made up of Seguin ISD, Marion ISD, and Navarro ISD if we so choose as the starting organizations. We would hopefully gain some additional support from other surrounding school districts that wanted to be included. This is a mirrored organization to one that currently exists for Bexar County schools. And so that coalition is a major player in advocacy at the legislature. They work with Mo Casey, who we currently already have a partnership with. And so it is a way for these particular school districts who have unique needs in our county to be able to advocate for those specific needs at the legislature. And with the hope of Mo Casey, have a hope of getting those things heard by legislators who can make a difference for us specifically. I did inquire related to the fees for this, if we would have a discount based on the fact that we already have a partnership with Mo Casey, and I'm not in favor of continuing to pay that partnership as well as the fees for this particular organization. And that was something that they will come back to me with, but they did not see a problem with that discount. Marianne is also in the same situation, already having a relationship with Mo Casey. Some of the legislative updates that I've been sending to you are, they included me in from the Bexar County Coalition so that we would see the kinds of information we would have access to, which are some insider things of what's happening. but also be able to be a voice for our group. So if you are interested in that, if you support that, I think it is something that would be beneficial for us to have our name included in the affairs of the county and trying to make a difference for the students of this school district.
So this is brand new. It doesn't exist currently.
That is correct, sir.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I don't, started taking more of the online advocacy, one-on-one things with TASB, just because we don't have a lot of that type of representation, not just our district, but the whole county here. And some of the stuff that you had been sending us, like I had been following too with SBA, and when you gave us like the breakdown of the money, like there's nobody there telling them, hey, the money you have is more than we already get from you. And larger districts and larger towns don't have that issue, but you know, we don't have a voice up there trying to argue for us. And so, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's something that we definitely need to look into and talk about. And from taking some of the advocacy classes at SLI last summer too, I'm not gonna say we're behind the ball on it. It's just, it's not something that's ever been, it's been something we talk about a lot, but I think it's something that we do need to do. Especially since people are making education decisions.
I think, and no, not that I have reservations about what we would gain. I have a concern about how small we would be just being Guadalupe County. It makes me think in my head of things that businesses do around here in Tri-County. You know, I wish that we could create something like that and have a bigger voice with, not saying that Guadalupe County is small in retrospect, but the more people we could have together would be, you know, to me, would feel better. You know, if we could hopefully in the future move in that direction, you know. I can't see Seguin, Marion, and Monroe having that huge of a voice, because that's just who we are. I mean, we like being smaller, but part of a larger group.
Is SCU non-divided or?
They have actually joined the Bexar County Coalition. Yes, Kamala is also in the Bexar County Coalition. I will tell you that I expressed the exact same thing because I want to make sure our voice is heard, but I also know that being small, that it might not have the impact that we want. So I did propose including area school districts and maybe referring to it as the Guadalupe County area coalition, pulling in Luling, pulling in some other places to get a bigger pool. But I also can see Mo Casey being very open to tagging us in with Bexar County, and so it really is this general area. But I do think it's important that we distinguished ourselves from those very large districts like Northside or Judson for our particular needs and the way that we are growing with a lack of industry, with ag exemptions, those particular needs, and having legislative representation to say, hey, this is something that not everybody is facing, so how are we gonna help this district specifically?
I understand.
And I think even with Seguin, Marion, and Navarro, we would need to make sure that our voice doesn't get lost with Seguin.
Yes.
Because Seguin and Navarro's concerns are completely different when it comes to advocating for what we truly need. So I do think if we could pull in some of the area ISDs to make it broader, that face some similar issues in terms of what you were saying. Lack of businesses, the ag exemptions, and so forth, would be helpful. Any other comments or questions? not, we're gonna go ahead and move on to, proposed dates for Team of 8. I think these were sent to you.
Yes, I sent to you, we have some selections in June 20th or 22nd, as well as July 11th, 12th, 13th, or 17th for the board training. And so we want to make sure that we pick a date that we can all participate so that we can work together on developing our team of 8.
I can do any day but the 20th.
Okay? Yes. No 22nd, so that leaves June out. Any other conflicts with the July dates, 11th, 12th, 13th, or 17th?
Yeah, the 17th.
And we won't do the 17th.
But I'm open all 3 of those days in July.
Okay. So I will send you guys the final date and time. We'll be working with Sherry Bays on the team of 8. And we can get that set up. Perfect.
What's going to be the topic?
We can discuss that. The things that she thought we could consider would be board self-evaluation. I did tell her I felt like we had some strong board operating procedures, so unless you have a desire to study that, I feel very confident that you've done good work with that. The roles and responsibilities, obviously the superintendent evaluation, goal setting and visioning, or any other particular district needs that you have. So if you'd like to discuss that, we can certainly hone the discussion with her on something that you feel strongly about.
I think it's been a really long time since we've done goals and
Goal setting.
visioning, so
Yes.
I mean, I think that is a priority.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the goals on the district website, they're probably at least 3 or 4 years old. So, yeah,
I think that'd be excellent.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, moving on along then, we will talk about softball field improvements.
All right, I'll begin the conversation just quickly with doing a little research coming into the school district about where we were on the softball improvements, and that the board did commit $50,000 to the improvement of the softball fields quite a while back. The investigation that I had is that we did not have additional bids placed or inquiries to really understand the scope of the work that was needed for the project. So in working with Robbie and with Coach on a general construction bid, we had to first start with the scope. And so we looked at a couple of things. First, backstop wall, as well as the backstop netting for inside the dugout and inside the area of the dugout. Some site work that would include concrete that needs to be ADA compliant for the softball field. The construction of 2 dugouts, home side dugout, which would also include some storage, a roof and wood structure to support the dugouts, a helmet, bat track at each dugout, floating 2-tier wood bench per dugout, and the safety rail in front of the dugout to include netting and square padding. This would also include the demolition of the 2 existing dugouts and a backstop chain link fence. With the softball field improvements, that would be $177,000. The softball dugouts would be an additional $120,000, with a total of a little over $372,000 for that scope of work. So unfortunately, the 50,000 that was set aside will not give us what we need for that full scope of the project, but we are aware that there are needs for improvement of the facility. And so just wanted to bring that to you as you guys continue your discussion.
Where did those estimates come from?
So this is one particular sports construction. This is just one right off the bat that I was able to get in the short amount of time we had. Certainly if we went out for bid, you know, we would have some competitive bids to look at. Correct.
Yeah.
I think truly what I wanted to do was just make sure that you were aware of, with escalation after the 5 years of the 50,000 being set aside, you definitely don't see the return on that 50,000 really solving some of the issues that we have.
Did they even mention a length of time in those estimates?
No.
That site work is going to keep it from going underwater.
I would tell you that I don't see drainage work referenced in this scope, so I would anticipate that no, that would be additional work.
Obviously, I'm the mother of a softball player. I've talked to numerous parents and coaches, and we are in desperate need of some improvement. Even when we move to the new high school, and if we ever pass an athletic bond, or when we pass an athletic bond in the near future, that money that we spend for any improvements is still going to be used for PE and bringing the junior high program. So we're not going to just be throwing, you know, 100,000 or 200 or 372,000 away, because we're going to be able to use it for our other campuses and other programs, especially when we want to bring a junior high program, which is what some of the surrounding school districts are doing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Obviously, everybody wants the best and the most, and we know we can't turf it because that would solve our problems. But I did have some pictures around that showed some of the recent flooding and how we have to cancel games and practices. We have to go pay different facilities to use their fields because we can't provide. The dugouts have been a hot topic from numerous years. 2019, I think, is when I looked at the report that we went and improved it, and then COVID hit in 2020. And then new coaches, we've had 3 new coaches in 4 or 5 years. And so it's been lost, and then things had turnover in that. They tried to get something this year, but because of when it started and when the season starts in January, it was unviable to get new dugouts even priced out and started. I know that the baseball program also is in need, and so do one, you probably have to do the other, or try to do that. I went back from all the way from 2012 to now, and baseball has had extended dugouts and piping and canopies, and that was all donated by the posse. The softball only had a press box improvement in 2019 that was $1,800, and that was a donation. The batting cages, renetting and doing that was a donation of $2,000. So we have not put in any money since at least 2012 or beyond. In other events, the event center, we just purchased a new floor for this year, just to give you a perspective of what we've used in our fund balances. Football, we bought new additional seating, stadium seating, visitors and home side. We re-turfed the field. Tennis, we obviously used our general funds to do the whole tennis court. The shed that the tennis court got was donated, so our posse and booster club have donated things that we couldn't do, so we're not asking for all the extra frills in that, because we still could get some donations too, but some of the basic stuff we need. It's dangerous when that ground is soggy, girls can hurt themselves. And I would like at least that we can try to get the field reconditioned. I hear the biggest problem is that field is so compact because the soil is not conditioned, so it doesn't absorb, and they can't drain it, and they have to take a helicopter. Recently donated their time to help dry out the field so we can have a playoff and work up against time. They ought to cover, they try to cover it, but because of the way it's situated in the drainage system and support, it does not do anything. The water just collects, it seems to flow. So it's in the pitcher's circle and the batter's box. You know, I told everybody, ask for everything, but we do need I think we need the dugouts, obviously. They are too small to fit our teams. We have 15 girls on a team. We can't fit all 15 in the dugout when they come in the back. Some of the kids have to stand outside. Not ideal.
I concur with everything you said, and I agree that we have to do some improvements to it, but I mean, it's gotta be done, so. And I would say also to your point that you said that it would still be able to be used once we move the athletics or have athletic facilities by the new high school. We can still use it for tournaments, other things that take place for softball that you'll need it for, and like you said, for PE and all. And I completely concur.
Any other questions? Is there thought in terms of where the additional funds would come from? Are we saying that it would come from the fund balance?
I'm gonna defer to Paul on that one. We had a brief discussion about some of the needs that have come up, whether it's football, turf, other things like that, and so.
One of the other things that's also coming up is that we're probably gonna have to deal with, from what I've been told and what everybody's telling us, is that the football turf is gonna have to be replaced this coming year, after this season probably. It's on its last legs and we're going to have to do something. I am having conversations, and in fact, after the conversation you had, when you told me when I heard the pricing on the softball fields, I went ahead and included that in an email with Dwayne Western, just to ask him, okay, what about if instead of borrowing $1 million, we borrow 1.4 to do work on softball complex and work on the football field, and what that would do, give me options to look at that. As I said, this next year this is the last year of one of our tax notes. So we will lose a $150,000 payment, starting, it would have saved us so that we could use it somewhere else. Well, it's maybe the place where we're using it. In terms of for the future. So I've asked Dwayne to look at that and give us some options on where we might be able to do that, so that we're not just constantly digging into fund balance. And like I said, we do have that one payment coming off, so it's not, I'm hoping that maybe the impact on the budget would be in net zero over a particular time frame over the next 10 years. So that's kind of my hope. We just have to see what he thinks, where interest rates are, and what we could get on those, and what the cost would be. And there's also even the possibility, if we get a higher rate, we can also, maybe pay it off early, refinance, pay it off early later. So there are options. I'm trying to explore that at this moment. So I've included that with Dwayne to see what he can do for us.
I guess what I would ask for from you is a true, rundown of what's needed for both teams. Not just one, a true rundown of what's needed, and then, don't know if we already go into getting pricing or not, but I'm thinking of line item pricing, we can actually see, what we really want to do and what we don't want to do. We think, the dugouts are more important than batting cages, what have you, I don't know. Or do a rundown, get the coach to do a rundown, figure out exactly what needed, get you to give us a recommendation on what you want to do.
And of course, through the bidding process, we can say, here's what, each one of those can be an alternate. This is the one thing we want for sure. And this is alternate 1, this is alternate 2, and go forward. So.
But that way you can bring us a true recommendation that says, this is what I feel that we should do. I think it's needed. One way or another, we've got to do something. Either we get out of the rain for,
So yeah, I agree with y'all, as well. I think this has to, it needs to be done. My question would be, can you have the information in order for us to take action in June? And if we were to take action in June, to Donna's point, it was not viable last year because we got started too late in the process. Are we still at a good time to where if we were to take action in June, can you get all the work done, for next year?
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the question we will have to ask, is based on the scope of the work. Can we get it all done, or is there an opportunity to phase in the projects so that there are, improvements for this season that then, as soon as the season are over, you go into a phase 2 of the next thing. I think the issue will be speaking with engineer about what those projects are, because if it is related to the drainage, and we would be back here again because we've done all these improvements that then don't do anything because the drainage issue still exists, are you going to see an improvement by next season? Not something visible necessarily. It might just be that infrastructure of the drainage that then becomes, now we have a good viable location to build a dugout and do it properly. So I think we have some investigating to do. We will make it our goal to bring back at the very least an update for you in June. Hopefully something that you guys can vote on to move forward with.
And I do think that addressing the drainage is important because otherwise it's just.
There's only one drainage area and it's not effective, it doesn't drain properly.
but I think a good engineer out there can say, because
Yeah.
depending on the actual true elevation, 6 inches of raising the playing surface could alleviate it all. It may not need French drain, it may not need culverts. It may just need an elevation change, which is easily done. It's more easily done than actually putting in a drainage system, and less costly.
Every year we add dirt, so we're just adding dirt and it gets blown away with the wind because we don't have some block stopping it. It gets washed away with the rain and flooding. And if you spend money and take all that dirt out and recondition it and not fix the drainage, go back to where we started, we just basically put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, I think you have to start there.
You have to start with.
All right, any other questions? Otherwise, accepting this?
Yes, half the charge.
What we need for June. Okay, so moving on to 6th grade, moving to the junior high.
All right, I do want to emphasize again that we want to keep you informed on all administrative recommendations and decisions to go forward. But this is another item that does not require the approval of the school board, just as moving the 3rd grade was not something that needed to be voted on. But we want to keep you informed always about the thought process, especially as we manage the growth in the school district and get your feedback as well as our community as we go forward. So I want to emphasize that the purpose of our presentation today is to share some cost comparisons of keeping the 6th grade at the intermediate or moving the 6th grade to the junior high. We're going to view the logistics of what those moves look like, the site maps, as well as a phasing idea that we have for the move of 6th grade. We also want to look at the academic impacts to junior high and the intermediate campuses and determine the best long-range planning for our move with 6th grade. So, here. This is our junior high site map. Did want to go ahead and clarify for you that when I brought the team together upon entering the district to discuss our issue with overcrowding, I really challenged the team. They stepped up. They've been amazing to really say, let's look at this, look at it with fresh eyes, and let's look at it from a needs base first, and then we'll talk about how we could expand for long range. So the first thing we looked at was what is the immediate need going into next year for 6th grade in regards to number of classrooms. And that is that we needed 8 additional classroom spaces. So it's important to note that as we talk about the options. So as I challenged the team to look into what available spaces could be converted to classrooms, we looked at, and you'll see close to the high school side, the 4 classrooms that would be portables moving in. And then we also looked at existing buildings, which in our first phase, these are the white classrooms that you'll see there, allowed us to gain not only 8, but 10 classrooms, which gives us some more flexibility for growth, especially moving into maybe a year 2. We also wanted to consider, though, what happens if we have delay in construction of the new high school, if we see larger growth than we anticipated. We didn't want to be in another Band-Aid situation where we're struggling to find a place for these students and to handle the capacity. So we looked at a phase 2, which would allow us to have a total of 12 classrooms. This would require that at the winter break, we move the maintenance shop and we expand them off this particular property site, giving us 2 more classrooms. There are some areas of sensitivity in where we put the portables, in that there are trees right there, and so we would need to look at the proximity of those trees when we move the portables in. One tree in particular is a memorial tree to a teacher, and so we would need to likely rededicate that tree. Moving it is not necessarily a successful way of keeping it alive, so we may need to purchase a tree and dedicate it off that site so that we are able to maintain that memorial tree. So I wanted to emphasize our budget impact from this particular move. And so you can see here, if we include both phase 1 and phase 2, we have a grand total of $393,112.19. This incorporates any furniture needs that we have, technology needs, as well as the building costs we would see in renovating some of these classroom spaces that are currently now used as storage, maintenance, office space for some of our staff, to really convert that to usable spaces for our students in the junior high. So it's never just about space. When we're looking about moves like this, we need to see how this is going to impact our students academically, how it affects our staffing so that we have the appropriate staff to serve the needs of our students. And so one of the things we looked at was how this move affected the structure of our grading. So the move would be from a 9-week grading to the 6-week grading cycle, so that the 6th grade is now online with our secondary campuses. We would need to transfer any curriculum resources over, as well as moving our staff that is shared staff. We have looked at that, and it is completely viable for them to be able to move and work at the junior high. It actually works better because we would no longer have that split schedule between what the intermediate is operating on and what 6th grade is operating on. We also talked with food service about an additional lunch and making sure that that was viable for our students as well as the staff to be able to provide lunch, and that is something they can do. We do believe that this move would require some additional staff, and that would be what we would be recommending as we move from the current junior high campus to the high school when that becomes the junior high. And that would be an assistant principal to assist with the incoming students. It would also include a registrar. We also believe that the need for another fine arts elective teacher would be there. Right now, we're looking at whether it would be art or choir. Obviously, choir was not offered because it's not an option at this point for the 6th graders. to be able to go and do that. At the junior high, we wanted to make sure that we had another interest survey out and really make sure that we were making the right choice for kids and building either the choir program out or expanding the art program with another teacher. And then some auxiliary staff. And I'll be bringing these positions to you later in the meeting in the action item. But in speaking with our staff about supporting the campus, we are definitely recommending 1 custodian. We actually believe that 2 may be needed, but what I will be asking for in the action item is to approve 1 and approve 1 as a reserve, meaning it's difficult to find custodians. I don't want to ask you to approve 2 positions if I can't fill them. So we would want to fill that 1 position. If I'm able to find another viable candidate, I will come to you and ask if we have permission to use that reserve position. But I did want to be very transparent that we think with the size of the campus, 2 custodians would be needed. I do want to also clarify in that map that when we located those particular classrooms, it's not to say those would be where the 6th grade is housed. Those are just the additional classrooms we found. So it'll be up to the principal and the assistant principal to decide what are the most effective areas to house 8th grade, 7th grade, and 6th grade now that you have these additional classrooms. We would also be adding the stipends for math and science teachers that receive those at the secondary level. So those 6th grade teachers would receive those stipends as well. So I didn't want to ignore the intermediate plan, so I wanted to bring that to you as well. So when you look at the intermediate plan, you can see that we would still need to add additional spaces to keep both 3rd grade and 6th grade at the intermediate site. This would include using 4 classrooms within the building and additional 4 classrooms in a portable. So as you can see, both options require us to have 4 classrooms via portables. In the second phase, we would likely have to add 2 more additional portables for 4 additional classrooms. So that would be 12 additional classrooms to be utilized by the 3rd grade and house the 3rd and through 6th grade in that campus. So when you look at the budget impact, you can see that oh, so sorry. Doesn't want to do what I want it to do. Let's go back. There we go. You can see here that we're looking at the same needs related to technology. We're looking at furniture. Phase 1 building cost, that would just start us out at a little under $200,000, but to bring in that phase 2, we'd be looking at a grand total of $564,911.72. The change in academic support would mean additions to the specials rotation for 3rd grade, as well as a move of academic resources from elementary to 3rd grade. But as I pointed out to you, removing the 6th grade means we don't worry anymore about 2 schedules running simultaneously on the same campus, as well as balancing that staff and balancing specials. So some key points to take in through all of this is that if we keep 3rd through 6th grade at the intermediate, the campus would be at capacity by the end of 2024-25, and we would need to look at adding a possible set of portables to the intermediate, as well as moving 6th grade to the junior high provides a 3-year plan for growth and provides an estimated $170,000 worth of cost savings. This also aligns with our master plan of moving 6th, 7th, and 8th to the current high school once the new high school is constructed. The elementary campus will be close to capacity, so I want to make sure everybody is aware of that. It is my goal as we move forward that everyone is very clear on this board about our capacity and what our plans need to be going forward to address the growth. We are close to capacity for the 24-25 school year at the elementary, and we currently are meeting as a team to discuss those options going forward related to, do we need to move 2nd grade out to potentially where we currently have the annex? Do we need to add additional portables? What are those decisions we're making as we look at our next set of options? Safety and security is of utmost concern, no matter what campus we're looking at. So we are looking at, as we add portables, whether they are at the intermediate or they are at the junior high, making sure we have the appropriate fencing. We did get the safety and security grant. So right now we are waiting on the legislature, who is making decisions about whether further funding will come per student, whether there will be a minimum of $15,000 per school, but also their requirements. Are they going to say it's a 10-foot fence? So it doesn't make sense right now for us to put in a 4-foot fence, a 6-foot fence, if they're gonna ask for a 10. So we are waiting on that information, but we do plan on having that safety and security piece. Oh, doesn't like me today. I do want to share the capacity models with you. This is part of our discussion as we planned. You can see the current capacity for our elementary, intermediate, and junior high. Obviously, as we're getting into the next few years, we are hitting that capacity level. If we keep 3rd through 6th together, you can see that after 23-24, we have to address the growth at the intermediate and the junior high. With the 6th moving to 7th and 8th grade at the junior high, we buy ourselves some more time. This is a much more viable long-range plan, and then we do have to look at portables at the intermediate, a shift of portables or additional space for the elementary. So, long presentation, but a lot to consider as we absolutely work to manage the growth. We believe that the intermediate 3rd through 6th grade move will cost $56,000 less for the first phase, but it's not going to offer us the long-term support that we need, and so the district will need to reassess the possibilities after the 2nd phase of portables. The junior high 6th to 8th grade move costs more up front, but it's ultimately going to save us $170,000 overall. It's a better long-term solution for our growth needs in the district, and we do feel like it better aligns with the plan going forward. And ultimately, it is in the district's best interest to move 6th grade to the junior high for the overall cost, the move aligning with the district plan, and finally, the growth options that it gives us for our other campuses. So I'm happy to take any questions you may have in regards to our recommendation that 6th grade move to 7th and 8th at the junior high level.
Is the portable the one that we approved, is it the new one? No. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's already the one that's gonna be there. So it's not, okay.
My question would be, as far as the portables go, the portables that we were talking about putting on this campus, we're gonna have plumbing. Correct. But the ones we would put over between the high school and the junior high would not have plumbing because they're real close to facilities?
Correct. So if you look at both of the budget impacts side by side, it has a wet option and the junior high has a no option at all. So we added that to it. So if we went with the junior high, we would actually take off the $30,000,
Right.
call the manufacturer, and so that we can still make changes right now. So yes, we put it to junior high, we'll be spending the extra $30,000.
Right. That's good.
Any other questions? That was a good presentation. It was a great presentation. Thank you. If not, we're going to move on to our resignations. Is there any questions or? Okay. All right, then we're going to go ahead and move to enrollment. Any questions that y'all have on enrollment?
You do see some increases in 11th and 12th grade, but this time of year we see some, minor decreases, but no big shifts right now.
And you have the calendar of events, which we are getting down to the last 2 weeks, but still lots what's to do.
Yes, senior week, certainly we have Shattered Dreams coming up. So we are emphasizing that in communication so that our families are not shocked or upset when they see helicopters, they see that the road is blocked off. We've made a concerted effort to make sure everyone is aware that that's part of what's happening. And also the final day that we meet here as a staff, we will have a retirement celebration and a celebration of the work of our teams. So you are more than welcome to attend that. We would be happy to have you if you're available to celebrate the great accomplishments of this year.
Any questions on the district financial reports? If not, we will move on into consent agenda. Questions on the consent agenda? If not, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion that the board accept the consent agenda as presented.
Motion was made by Donna, second by Melissa. Any questions? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to the action items, our first action item is to consider and take possible action to approve additional staffing positions for the junior high campus.
As I mentioned in discussion, we would be requesting an assistant principal, a junior high registrar, a fine arts teacher to either be art or choir, determined on student interest, and then closing out with a custodian position and a second custodial position that, if approved, would be on reserve, and we would come back to you if we found a viable candidate and wanted to fill that position.
Are you asking for 2 elective teachers?
No, ma'am, just one.
The way it's written here, it's showing 2.
Yeah.
It's showing 2 in the budget.
If it's not, I'll apply for it.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're gonna have a lot of teachers.
I'm gonna save you some money and say that we'll adjust the motion and it will just be one.
Or Mr. Todd will start teaching it.
Let's do 2.
I would love to see two. We'll grow into that. We'll come back to you when we actually need it.
Yeah, I'm teasing.
Not really.
I said I'm teasing.
No, but you're not really.
I guess my comment on this is these are positions we would need to hire as we go along, making the move anyway.
Right.
It's not something that we're not gonna do eventually as it is. It's just in doing it now because we're having to make the move.
We brought the 3rd grade, 6th graders, and another custodian to the other areas that they use. So that's a kind of a wash. We need an elected teacher to help with the 3rd grade for that kind of wash. So I agree.
I guess my only question, this is more to the board, just as a recollection of other conversations that we had, is the PEAMS clerk. I thought we were moving towards a district PEAMS coordinator.
We do have a half of, on the record, we have a team, the district team's word of half position. The other half is the data. We did approve that.
But this is just
This is
campus.
for a campus.
Okay.
Yes,
Right,
that
this
is
is
correct.
campus level, not
Yes, you're
Okay.
district level.
Gotcha.
I think, and somebody can correct me if you're right, but I think the secretary is the attendance from junior high now, because it's only 2 grades, but yeah, it's 3.
Okay.
That's correct. So all campuses have 2 with the exception of junior high. Amanda is the registrar at elementary, Susie's the secretary. Intermediate, Amber and Christy Reyes. Junior high is just the one, Nicole Francis. So we would need the 2. The registrar job is very busy and very involved. And the high school again has a new one, Mrs. Gisela Molina, and then Debbie in the front office. So every campus has 2 with the exception of the junior high. And we do have district level with Mrs. Ballard.
I was just curious about that. Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the new positions as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Amy, second by Dan. Any other comments? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Next action item is consider and take possible action to approve the guaranteed maximum price. So this is where Mr. Bird will come back.
Yes, sir. I have the clicker. You get it.
What are you sighing about? Oh, you went all the way back to the beginning.
Somebody to celebrate, for sure.
Okay. Derek Bird, AGCM, there we go. So, project cost, GMP presentation. What I did was go back through what we've presented to you over the past almost 1 year. So, in June of 22, we were at the board with a DD estimate at $95,292,000. So what I'm showing you here is our total, and then the escalation and contingency, the construction manager contingency allowances. So these are the numbers that carry through each of our costs. So we're at 95, for our 65%, we jumped up to 98, and today we're coming to the board for an approval of $97,211,460. That does include a 2% construction manager contingency and escalation allowance. These are different funds that the general contractor has access to in case there is a miss in the estimate, something that they need to cover. They have the contingency allowance for the CM to work from those funds for. If at the end of the project those funds are not all utilized, those funds come back to the district. Same thing with the escalation. The escalation is going to be more controlled by the district. They will have to provide proof of the original bid, documentation from the manufacturer of why they're seeking an increase for the escalation, and then we will sign off on that. Same thing, if at the end of the project those funds are not all utilized, that money comes back to the district. So our total all-in is the $97,211, which has actually made me smile when we got this. Big things I want to show you, there are some additional allowances that are built into this project. We do have $125,000 for testing and balance. You'll recall we already do have a commissioning service on board for this project, so we have commissioning, and then testing and balance will be done through the general contractor out of an allowance. We do also include the building distribution antenna, so this is something I've been carrying a line item for separately. It's included in the GMP already, and that's just in case we need to add that antenna for first responders that are entering the building. If their radio systems aren't working, that'll be something that has to be determined once the CMU metal roof, all that's in place, go in, test it. Hopefully we don't need to, but if we do, we've got an allowance. We're also carrying a $1 million owner's allowance. This is for any additional changes that the district may make. Hopefully there aren't any, but as we get into going, some things come up. So, and then we are including $600,000 for the traffic light. If you recall, we were originally carrying $250 to $300 for this. We've bumped this up because of the size of the lights. And then we also came to the realization that TxDOT or county is probably going to require flashing school zone signals at some point, and that's going to come to our cost. So that allowance has been bumped up a little bit to accommodate for that, and then we also have our owner allowance. And then the two CM contingency and escalation. One thing we did present and did include in that total GMP is this alternate one. So we had put this out as an alternate to do concrete paving at all of the parking lots. Originally, we just had concrete drives and asphalt parking lots. Where we came out with the cost, where this landed, we feel this is a very good add for long-term maintenance upkeep, and definitely would recommend authorizing that alternate be included in the GMP. The other thing in here is schedule. So the overall schedule that is being presented tonight is a 26.6. Where's Scott? I don't know where you came up with these random things, but just over 26 and a half months total. So we're going to start based off tonight, 5/15, to authorize them to begin buyout. I believe this is important to go ahead and give them this authorization, even though we're not fully confident on the permits. Gives them the chance to go ahead and lock in contracts, get materials, get submittals going, materials ordered, because we do still have some long lead items that are out there that we can get ahead of. The other important thing is a lot of bonds just passed. There's going to be a lot of other projects hitting the ground, and we'd like to be ahead of them and be ahead. Be nice. So that includes that. The Public Works infrastructure beginning June 1st. We've already talked about kind of where that stands. And then high school beginning mid-August or beginning of August. And they've got just over 24-month construction time on that. So, dang it, messed up a year. So that should be 8/15 of 25. That's not. You're approving the superintendent to negotiate contracts. I'm sure that I will get reams for that one.
Can I build in a penalty clause if they don't make that?
You need a new job there. You're fired.
Goodbye. And I'm going to introduce Melissa now. Melissa's going to take over the presentation from here. Okay, so 8/15/25, all joking aside. That pushes us very tight. And let's just be real about where construction's been and where schedules have been. It's up in the air. We got a 2-year project. Who knows what could go really well and who knows what could go wrong. So we're shooting for that fall of 25. That class is in there. We need to be flexible as we get to those dates and just, we're going to keep on top of the schedule. We're going to keep on top of contractors. But I mean, in the last 2 years have been the craziest thing I've seen in construction. And, we've got a really great team working on this project, but you don't know. So being transparent with y'all on what to expect, want to set expectations to where we're not failing the community down the road. We're not telling them, hey, we're absolutely going to be in there fall. We're shooting for it. Everybody's pushing for it. That's all we can really do right now. We're ready to get the dirt moving. And that first step is tonight in getting this GMP approved. So that is what we are presenting tonight as far as the maximum price. I am open to questions.
Questions for Derek? I just have a question. Is it just random that the CM contingency and the escalation amounts exactly the same on that option where it wasn't on the other option?
We've never carried the same amounts. So in the DD, we had a much higher escalation because we had such a long term ahead of it. And then that came down at the 65%, and then we shrunk that down further even for this. So they've never been the same coming forward. At this point, just, time is the big thing with escalation. And Scott and I have had this conversation. If we were sure on time, if we were sure on design, because we still do have that one little piece on that Timmerman 123 and Mr. Bartoskowitz, it's kind of up in the air. And so, we're pushing forward with what we've got, but there's chances that stuff moves. And so by going with these amounts, we're protecting ourselves from having to come back and asking for more money from the board down the road if something does change.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning whether to ask for it. I was just saying
No.
they're exactly the same.
They just went
amount
at 2% for both of them.
for both. Okay, gotcha.
And that was over the overall project cost.
Okay.
And what's going on with 123 with all that?
So all the 123 widening is included in this. We do have the keynote that our design only shows milling at it shows a 2-inch overlay over the entire section that we widen. And so then we would just mill down 123 where that connection is and make that a gentle slope up to the 2 inches. That's how it's designed. There's a clause in there that Bartlett's got that if TxDOT comes back and says, no, you need to mill this all down and redo the entire thing, that's going to be one of the change orders that would come from them. But we do have the 123. With the new design, we're not having to do as much work on the other side of Timmerman. We do have to widen it, include a dedicated left-hand turn lane there, but we're not having to go back the 300 feet and do an offset. So we get that out of the way. We've got all the widening in the larger driveway. We have, 14 culverts, 14 2x4 culverts under the roadway. So the roadway is elevated at this point. We won't have the drainage issue that we've discussed. We don't have the offset, we've got the traffic signal. So, you know, when we presented in, was it January, and said, hey, we've got this 123 widening, we're looking at about 2.3 million, all that is included in these numbers.
What is it now?
I don't know, our total is 97.
If I read it correctly, it was like 2.1.
Yeah,
All right,
it's around
it shows it in a separate line.
Okay.
Well, the public infrastructure is all the water line, so that separate package, the public infrastructure package, is all the water line improvements, that is public water lines, sewer lines, and then the roadway improvements.
All that was too.
Yes. Okay. I'm double checking myself with the experts. And we do have Scott with Bartlett Cocking, Cody with Claycomber, both here if you have any questions for them as well.
My question, I posed this to Andy earlier in the week about some line items that are in there, about things that are only rough and only that are in there. Are you handling, or are we handling, who's handling getting those bids to make sure it's coordinated to where it's all being built at the same time, so we don't finish the high school and then we're like, oh crap.
So like for the access control, we are getting separate bids from access control. We wanted to try to keep that done by the district. It keeps it out of Bartlett Cox scope, keeps it out of their cost markups, and it's something that could be done separately. We are, AGCM is coordinating with those things.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That way it's in line with construction, that's why it's
And
all being done at the same time.
we're including it. So one thing to know is this is just cost of construction. This isn't the land purchase. This isn't your furniture cost, your design teams, any of that. This is just your cost of construction. So I'm working to put together a full budget of everything else. That's actually my entire morning tomorrow, right now.
Other questions? Not, do I hear a motion?
I move that the board approve the guaranteed maximum price GMP amendment as presented by administration for the new high school project, and further delegate authority to the superintendent of her designee, finalize negotiations and execute the GMP amendment in a form approved by legal counsel.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion was made by Clint, second by Pink. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 6-0.
Yes.
That has been,
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
We are, we're.
Thank
Forward
you.
getting permits, moving dirt.
Yes, sir, onward.
yes.
You say that they won't have tractors lined up.
Seems like it's been a long time coming, but thank you.
I couldn't believe it that it had been June was the first.
Thank you, have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the next action item is consider approval of the new position. We're gonna scratch that since we took it off of discussion. So the next action item then is consider and take possible action on the board meeting start time.
I mean, ideally, I would like to see it from 6, because I really don't want to do that. Yeah. But, I mean,
Well, and I think also with some of the structure changes and so forth, we should be able to get our meetings to 3 hours and not be here, as a goal.
I think it'd be even shorter.
Yeah, they should be shorter for sure. With some of that additional things that we can make happen.
Yeah, because we could have, construction update workshops or something before, as well as budget workshops. If we did want to start a little bit earlier for those too, with the regular start time.
Yeah.
probably do it at the regular meeting time. I think we can shore up the speed in which we do those, so that they're effective and they're valuable for our families. I'd like to, I enjoy having the presenters be their teachers who know them, but I think we can streamline that. I'd also like to see perhaps some certificates, so that it has some value, so they actually come. Because I think that's important. I know you noticed tonight I stood up to take a picture with them. I think we can, as a group, also be in those pictures if that's something you guys would like, because I think it needs to have some weight, but I think we can streamline it so it moves quickly. They get a good recognition, but it doesn't consume a large part of the meeting.
So,
I like 6, but I'm close by.
I think it's hardest for us three due to the distance. That's why I'm selling 6:30, because it's hard for me with the distance I have to go. Not from my house, but from work. My house is close.
And I could make the suggestion that if we begin with a 6:30, see how viable that is for everyone, and if you feel like you can move up to 6 after that, but this way we're not making a decision with Ms. Gosh gone that would be too extreme if she can't make it.
And then on that note, I make a motion that the board approve changing a board meeting start time to 6:30 p.m. for regular meetings.
starting
I'm sorry?
starting when?
I guess we next effective next regular board meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion was made by Hank, second by Dan. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. All right, so now, we will be going in closed session tonight pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074 to discuss the duties of the superintendent, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074 to discuss the employment of professional personnel to include teachers, administrators, and auxiliary staff, and pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Any related action will be taken in open session. So it is 9:10 and we will adjourn. Whoa, it is, 10:27, and we are back in open session. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that the board approve the superintendent's recommendation for professional employment as presented and discussed in closed session.
Motion made by Haynes, second by Quinn. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, and we will adjourn the evening at 10:48.